6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 2, 3. Is there any way I could get the lights out of my, like pointing upwards? Again, I'm getting like flat. I can't close my eyes and I'm having Hello everyone, welcome to Gentle Yoga at Noon. I am Jeani, your guide for the next hour. We are using the class to warm up the usual areas of our body before class, about 5 minutes or so, before we go into a modified walking meditation. We'll do a few balancing poses, and we'll make our way hopefully to the floor. If you have any issues with making your way to the floor, I suggest having a chair nearby, using the chair to help you get down. And if you need to do some of the poses from the chair, please feel free. Hopefully I can give you some cues that'll give you an idea of how to present the pose from the chair. But other than that, if you're new to yoga, take your time. If something doesn't speak to you, you are not obligated to go there. Just stand in a pose that you're able to deal with, and we'll take it from there. Today's class is just a continuation of opening up through the major joints as we usually do. So if you have any favorite props like a strap, like blocks, a blanket, those are some of the things that you can use to support the body as you're making your way down to the floor, or just sometimes to help you reach a certain distance. So anyhow, I'll hopefully cue for that as well. So as we start this class, let's see the playlist here. We're going to turn that on. We start at the back of the class, and I have the blocks at the back here. Usually I have them at the front, but if you want to start with the blocks in your hands when we start going into the forward folds from the back of the mat, feel free to keep them there. And you can always carry them with you as we're doing our walking meditation to the top of the mat. And having said that, yes, it is. I just haven't turned on the music yet. So, and sometimes when I do that, I also have to turn on the volume. Tech stuff that I've learned. Okay, so starting at the back of the mat, as we're arriving, you don't have to change the quality of your breath. But we're starting out with just bringing ourselves to this moment. Notice how the mat feels under the feet. If you took some time to get here, you might be able to feel your heart beating right now. But as we're standing in our home position of mountain, you can keep a slight bend to the knees. All you need to do is check in. You can notice how the body is feeling as you arrive. And as we start our practice, we'll begin with the breath. Let's place our left palm on our chest, right palm under the belly button. And now focus in on breathing through the nose. Inhaling. A brief pause at the top of the inhale before you start exhaling through the nose. Another brief pause before you start the next breath cycle. You might find you have a shallow breath cycle right now, and that's okay. Most of us do. As we start to cultivate this yogic breath, we'll notice each inhale perhaps lengthening to 3 to 5 seconds. Each exhale, again, 3 to 5 seconds. And pretty soon our breath cycle becomes a little longer, a little softer. At the top of the inhale, you may feel the chest hand lift, the rib cage expanding outwards. And as you exhale with a little more control through the nose, feeling the energy leaving the belly, leaving the lungs. Press in the belly hand. Remind your core to be engaged. And to finish cultivating our yogic breath, on both the inhales and exhales, you can expand the space above the throat. See if you can hear something akin to a sigh, the ocean. with that. We can release our hands to the sides and know you can always connect to that yogic breath throughout your practice, on and off the mat. And in our home base of mountain, we want our feet about hips distance apart. Keep a bend to the knees, especially if you have legs that feel really tight from your week's activities. And we'll start to inhale. Feel that energy drawing from the earth up the feet, up the legs, up the spine, to the crown of the head and beyond. Brief pause as you then begin your exhale with that energy reverse order back down towards the mat, towards the earth, feeling a little more rooted, engaging the core at the bottom of the exhale. With the next inhale, start to feel the center of gravity at the soles of the feet, tipping towards the toes, keeping the soles of the feet in contact with the mat. Fully inhaled here, hopefully at this edge, you can start to bring the center of gravity with the next breath, with your exhale, back towards the heels. And it's just a slow observing motion of where your center is. And at the bottom of the exhale, hopefully at that edge, at the heels. And we'll start another couple of rounds of just heel to toe exploration, noticing how the balance changes as your center moves in that top to bottom direction. And then we'll meet back at center. Imagine somewhere at the top of the ankles, near to the heels, dropping back into our mountain very subtly. We can inhale, feel a little longer, feel that energy drawing upwards once more. And imagine that string at the crown of the head lifting at the top of the inhale. So all you have to do is exhale to the right side of your feet. Slowly start to find that right edge of the feet. Fully exhale there. Inhale back to center. And exhale to the other side, to the left side of the feet. The body is nice and long. Fully exhaled on this side, using a 3-part breath. Inhale back to center, and exhale to the other side. You can also use a 2-part breath. Just inhale to one side, exhale to the other. But find that horizontal mapping now at the base of our feet. Seeing the center of gravity shifting subtly as we breathe each breath cycle. Then we'll return back to center once more in our mountain. Feeling that center a little more at the top of the ankles, nearer to the heels. Give yourself one more inhale through the nose, feeling a little longer every time we return to our mountain. Feel that energy lifting at the crown of the head. And then we'll start making small circles at the ankles, starting to radiate outwards. Your hands, your arms might do something different to help deal with this change in your center. But what we're achieving, hopefully, after a few breath cycles, is just the perimeter exploration of our feet. Getting that edge all along the perimeter. And once it's explored, we can go ahead and tighten in the circles. Return back to home base, somewhere above the ankles. Imagine water going down a drain. Notice how the feet might be moving out and in, back and forth. We've just purposefully identified those directions, but as our balance changes, it's something to keep in mind. Give yourself another deep inhale, drawing energy from the earth all the way up the body to that crown of the head, lifting towards the ceiling. And then we make small circles in the opposite direction, but again, at the ankles, radiating outward towards the perimeter of our feet. It may be smooth sailing here, it may be choppy. You may notice tightness in the hips, in the knees, in the ankles. It might just be the same. Just notice it. And once you've found the outer edge of your feet, we're going to tighten in those circles. Once more, return back to center, back to home base in our mountain. Feel that energy just sinking right into the earth. All right, now if you have a tendency to grip the mat, you can always release the feet. You can roll to the toes, roll to the heels. Just reset your mountain once more, gentle bounce to the knees if you need, and then see if you can just get a little longer. Notice if you're rolling outwards or inwards. We want all points of the feet nice and flat, evenly distributing our weight, with of course the center somewhere at the top of the ankles, near to the heels. Now as we're going to the next warm-up, we're going to start shifting our weight from left foot to right foot. And as we do more shifting, presenting more weight, we may need to widen the feet some. We're going to shift the toes outward. And we're going to start finding a movement at the base of our feet that maybe translates upwards, so that we're not really moving our arms so much as moving the trunk at maybe a second or two delay from the bottom part of our body. And as more of the chest moves, swerves, swivels to one side, we want to lift the toes of that same side so we don't torque out the knees. And eventually, as we start to have some gentle movement in our ankles, in our hips, in our trunk right there at the waist, we may feel that momentum allowing these very relaxed arms to kind of tap into the body. If you really get your arms swinging, and again, it's the torso that's driving this motion, you may have the hands just tapping at certain parts of the body. And then we'll let that energy return to center. Let it peter out. Bring in the pivoted toes, and bring the alignment of the heels and toes back underneath the hip bones, back to our base bridge, base home base mountain, and then reset the mountain if you need. Make sure you can always look down, make sure your toes are kind of aligned at the top. And then here, we're going to be moving on up to the shoulders. Now, as we move up the body and we've had these lower limbs just a little more lubricated, we want to think about lengthening through the legs. If your legs are really tight, if you have a pronounced tilt of the hip bones forward, then go ahead and bend the knees a little more. Keep comfortable. We don't want to lock out our knees. And we're going to go ahead and bring the palms to face forward as we think about lifting up through the torso and lengthening through the legs. We want to bring that tailbone downward, tucking under the tailbone, lifting up through the chest. Shoulders are just slightly back, palms faced forward. We'll go ahead and inhale slowly, lift the shoulders up towards the ceiling. On the exhale, we're going to roll them back and just let them melt down. Fully exhaled, engage the core, draw the belly button towards the spine, fully engaged. We're doing a total of 4 breath cycles worth of these shoulder rolls. Inhaling up, exhaling, rolling them back, and letting them melt fully down at the bottom of the exhale. Imagine the inhale brings in all the energy. The exhale just has the shoulders relaxing down the back as they roll back and down. And the very bottom points of your shoulder blades resting at the back, kind of like angel's wings, tucking into the mid-back. Now we're going to do a second set, inhaling the shoulders up, but this time we roll the shoulders forward on the exhale, still tucking in the points of the shoulder blades into the mid-back at the bottom of the exhale. You may hear that yogic breath working at the back of the throat, facilitating each breath cycle, helping you to release through the shoulders. One last breath cycle for me. And after that, go ahead and reset once more. Sometimes it's about releasing from even the simplest, most gentle poses. But as we move into the next and final warm-up, we're going to hopefully release from the neck up. palms facing forward, shoulders down to the heels, nice and supported. And as we inhale, feel that energy lifting all the way up to the crown of the head, a string lifting towards the ceiling. So as we're at the top of the inhale, all we have to do is exhale slowly, let the right ear drift towards the right shoulder. We still want space there, about the size of an orange. And as we inhale, drawing up energy from our feet and lifting through the top of the chest there, we can exhale. Turn the gaze until it stops naturally. Rest your eyes on the rightmost of your vision and give yourself a total of 4 breath cycles here as well. We're keeping the shoulders aligned, one with the other, hips one with the other, ankles one with the other. If you entered this position and on the exhale, your left shoulder lifted, coax it back down in line with the right shoulder. We want to have our shoulders nice and supported all the way down to the heels without having the weight leaning towards this right side. At the very last exhale, you may find your eyes resting on your thumb, on your right shoulder, perhaps on the floor behind your right shoulder. And after that exhale, inhale the eyes back into the gaze turns, feel that crown of the head lifting towards the ceiling completely at the top of the inhale. So all you have to do is exhale over to the other side. Inhale, draw the energy, feel the chest lift. Exhale, turn the gaze. And let the next 3 to 4 breath cycles help you release on the right side of the neck. Even the eyes, perhaps by that 4th exhale, you can find release with the eyes resting at the leftmost of your vision. A soft gaze. And after that very last exhale, you can inhale the eyes, the gaze, the crown of the head lifting all the way to the crown, to the top of the ceiling. So all you have to do is exhale the eyes, let them float downward and rest at about the top of your mat, 6 feet in front of you. A nice space between the chin and the chest. And as we inhale, a slight diagonal tilt of the crown of the head. And once more, notice how the foundation of the feet, are they evenly distributing the weight? Are you rolling outward or inward? Just subtle notices, subtle observations to keep the foundation as you're moving through even this part of our warm-up. A total of 4 breath cycles here as well. After the very last exhale, we can inhale the eyes back towards the midline, past the midline, and towards the ceiling. Once you can see the ceiling, stop craning the back of your neck. And here we're going to use the next 4 breath cycles to see if we can release through the front of the neck, the jaw, the mouth, even that brow line. See if you can use that yogic breath to help facilitate release in the mouth. Maybe a small O to a large O. Maybe a gentle side-to-side motion with the lower jaw. Notice if you've been clenching the teeth at this point. Hopefully that'll release any tension there. And still that connection to the deep yogic breath. And after your last exhale, about 4 breath cycles in, we'll just let the eyes float back towards the midline. And feel yourself rooting downward at the bottom of that exhale, engaging the core. Go ahead and shake out any residual activation of muscles. Again, if you tend to grip at the base of the feet, you can lift your feet. And we'll be moving now into our forward folds. Now, having the blocks to the side will enable you to rest your hands there, but you are welcome to also grab a hold of the blocks. Get mine just to demonstrate. If you have difficulty folding, which is what we're going to be doing like so, having the blocks in your hands will help you to help support the body. So at this point, we're going to connect to reset our mountain. We're going to be reaching downward. Usually if you don't have the blocks, you can just feel that energy of reaching downward with the fingers, feeling the lengthening of the body, pressing down through the feet as we're lifting up through the crown of the head, reaching downwards with the fingertips. Start to inhale, allow the arms to extend upwards, and at the top, we're going to exhale slowly, engaging the core, bringing the tailbone back behind the midline of where your legs were so we can kind of hinge at the hips and slowly float downwards. You might have the blocks in your hands. You can walk the hands, blocks, with or without the blocks, down until you're finally where you need to be. You will just stop where you need to be. Now, if you're really tight in the lower back, your fold might look more like a half lift. You might have a 90-degree angle here at the hips, but what we're really looking for is this chest getting nearer to the thighs. You may need to support your upper body with the forearms to the thighs. Maybe your hands are just dangling in the air. Maybe they're on top of these blocks that you might have nearby. But notice if you're tipping forward, draw more weight, more of your center towards the tops of the ankles, near to the heels. We really want that support from the hips all the way down to the heels. And if your legs are really tight in the back, you may need to have a deep bend and have the tailbone a little closer to the floor, and that's okay. Eventually, we want to lengthen through, and in our first forward fold, it's about 5 full breath cycles. It's our rag doll of a forward fold. So here you can do a number of things to help facilitate the release. Wherever your arms are, wherever they may be, we don't want to hold any activation of muscles that are unnecessary. So we're looking for a tailbone, down the spine, down the neck, to the crown of the head, release. So that might entail you gently giving a no action with the head, perhaps a yes movement. Maybe let the head just bobble through. If you feel a little dizzy, like you might fall forward, bring some weight to the heels, bring your blocks under your hands, but try to release through the upper body. And those slow breath cycles with the yogic sound, with the sound of the ocean at the back of the throat. Each exhale, engaging your relaxing side of the nervous system, allowing you just a little more release. Now, as we approach our very last breath, we're going to come out of our forward fold with a slow roll up. We want to engage our core, and that means stepping into the feet, feeling rooted at the feet, firming the thighs, engaging that core at the belly there, and just slowly walking up the body. One vertebra at a time. If you have blocks in your hands, just do your best to try to walk them up, or you can just slowly, without the blocks, just allow one vertebra at a time to stack, and the head will be the last to stack on top. Gently tuck under the tailbone, roll the shoulders gently back and down, and let them just relax at your side. Give yourself a moment or two to let the blood rush back to the head. And we'll do our second fold, a little shorter this time. Inhaling, reaching downward with our fingers. Go ahead and extend the arms upwards, and at the top we may even reach up. And then exhale, engaging the core, bringing the tailbone back and folding, hinging at the hips, long back. And if you have to, walk the hands down or just let the back float all the way down to your second fold. It's about 3 breath cycles here. Notice if the feet have changed, if they rolled outwards. We again want to have the center closer to our ankles to keep that hip to heel support column. And giving ourselves the deep yogic breaths, both inhales, pause, exhales, and pause, to see if we can release any more through the back, lower back. We may even
alternately bend one knee, lengthen that leg, and then alternate with the other leg. You could shift the hips from side to side and see if that helps to release any tension in the upper body. Arms should be nice and relaxed, even if they're supporting the torso on the thighs. And hopefully more and more of the chest eventually is moving towards the thighs. And then with the second exit from the forward fold, we have a choice to once more roll up slowly as we did before, or come up with a straight back if your core is strong. Either way, inhaling, we're pressing into our feet, engaging the core. Dipping the tailbone down and lifting all the way up, pressing into our legs, lengthening, reaching all the way up. Exhaling, if you can bring your hands down, heart center. In here, we'll begin our walking meditation. Pressing into our palms. If you have the blocks in your hands, just do your best here. We're going to bring standing weight to the left side of our body. It's just a subtle shift of our weight, lengthening through that leg. And then if you're able to, just lift the right heel. And then if you can, hover that foot above. And then step it forward, exhaling. And start to shift the weight towards the right leg, right foot. And fully exhaled on your right foot. If you have the balance, then you can inhale, lift the left foot, and exhale that forward. You can do a heel or a midfoot to ball of foot to toes. And we're lifting the other foot with an inhale and exhaling that down. Move at your own pace. If you feel a little wobbly, that's okay. Pressing into the palms, re-engage the core if you felt that lost, but it's about one full breath cycle per step. And if you fall out, again, it's okay. Come on back. Do your best, and we'll meet at the top of the mat. And it's more challenging if your balance is good to lift the foot higher and having it hover in the air. But you can always just lift the foot slightly to step it forward. So here at the top of the mat, we'll look at our fingertips. Inhale, press into the palms and watch the fingertips rise. And at the top, we'll separate the palms and exhale. Once more, we'll fold. Engage the core, step into the feet, brace the thighs, firm belly button to the spine, and we'll come on down. And if you've got your blocks, you can always bring your hands down to the blocks. If you're able to just bring your hands maybe a little further down in your third fold. This time, wherever you have contact, be it the blocks, the shins, the thighs, we're going to press into that to lengthen through the legs best that we can. If you're really tight through the back, don't worry about a nice long leg, but think about lengthening through the back. Eventually, we'll have a half lift that's maybe 90 degrees, but it's just a work in progress, so do your best. And then we can exhale, return to the fold. We're going to bring our hands, if we have blocks, to each of the blocks, and putting them down at the flat side, or whichever side you can, or just next to each of the feet. And we're going to bend our knees and start to walk our foot back. You might have a great big step back, or you might have little tiny steps back, but we're bringing the feet back to the back of the mat, and then we'll inhale, shoulders over the wrists into our first high plank, but we're bringing the shins down, and we're modifying our first plank. If you can keep the tops of the ankles on the floor, that's good. We want to open up if possible, but you can always tuck those toes if that's not speaking to you. But eventually, hopefully, the tops of the ankles, the shins are supporting the lower body, and the upper body has much of the weight bearing on these extended arms, and you're pressing into the palms, into the floor to keep those shoulders kind of moving away from the spine to have you support the upper body. And if you can imagine just an orientation of your wrists so that if you were to bend your elbows, the elbows would be pointing towards the back of the mat. Keep the fingers splayed, middle finger, index fingers towards the top of the mat. And the belly button is sticking to the spine, engaged core. We're about 5 breath cycles here, just trying to feel out our first modified high plank. If you've noticed that your wrists are tight, if you have prior wrist injury, you can always bring the shoulders back behind the wrist so that there's not quite a 90-degree angle to the wrist. With the next inhale, we'll go ahead and tuck the toes if they aren't already. Lift up the hips. Exhale, press the hips back towards the back of the mat into your down dog. Now here, we may need to play with the distance between the feet and the hands. We may need to play with the distance between the feet, but we want them about hips distance apart. Heels can be lifted or they may be down on the mat. Either way, if they are down on the mat, we eventually will pivot in the toes slightly so that we can internally rotate our thighs and point the tailbone up towards the sky. But wherever you are, if it's really tight, you might need to have a deep bend to the knees and your heels might be highly lifted. That's okay. Try to notice how the shoulders are rotated. We don't want the elbows out. We don't want our ears, the shoulders caving into our ears. We want a nice long upper torso, and eventually moving towards an upside down V, with the top of the V being your tailbone, and finding that energy of the tailbone lifting while the energy of the tailbone down the back, down the hands is one direction downwards, and from the tailbone down the legs down to the feet is another direction. And our first down dog is also 5 breath cycles. We're almost there. With the next inhale, roll the eyes towards the hands and keep a deep bend to the knees if you need. We're going to exhale, walk the hands to the fold at the back of the mat. Walk your feet back if you need. And fully exhaled here. Inhale, half lift. And if you forgot your blocks, don't worry about that. We'll hopefully come on back this time. So inhaling to our half lift, and then exhaling to the fold. And then inhale, roll up slowly or come up with a straight back. But either way, engage the core. If you can bring your hands above in hearts, in prayer position, that's great. Lifting all the way up at the top of the inhale, exhaling hands down heart center. We're doing 2 more of these walking meditations. Inhaling, stepping into the left side of the body slightly, finding that balance so that you can lift the right heel, lift the right foot with an inhale, and exhale it forward. Press into the front leg with the full exhale before you lift the back leg. Engage your core and step it forward on an exhale. And again, it's 1 full breath cycle per step, moving as slowly as you can so you can feel how the center of gravity changes. And if you feel wobbly, see if your core is engaged, press into the palms to help regain that. And some days it might be nice and fluid, other days might be a little choppier. But we'll meet either way at the top of the mat in our mountain, looking down at our fingertips, pressing into the palms, lift up on the inhale, separate the palms, and on the exhale, re-engage the core. Bend the knees if you need, stick the tailbone back, and float down to yet another fold. Fully exhaled at the bottom of the fold. Inhale, half lift, wherever your hands are. Exhale, fold. Then bring your hands with the use of the blocks or just back on the mat into another high plank. But this time we're staying long in our legs. Inhale, shoulders over the wrists. And you're on the balls of the feet, feeling that energy from the heels all the way down to the balls of the feet and from the shoulders down to the wrists. And looking downward, we're here for about 3 breath cycles. And making sure your core is engaged, sticking the belly button to the spine. And then with an inhale, lift the hips. Exhale, press into those strong arms and lower the hips to your down dog at the back of the mat. Make any adjustment needed. Maybe you've got more of an upside down U. Maybe you need to keep the feet about hips distance apart. Maybe you need to think about where your head is. Again, with the elbows bending back towards the back of the mat. We'll have the shoulders hopefully rotated away from the ears, lots of space. And we're lifting up through the crown, through the apex of your upside down V at the tailbone as we're pressing down through the limbs. And all the while engaging the core. Here you can walk your dog. We're only here for about 3 breath cycles, but you can bend one knee and alternate with the other leg as we straighten it and bend the other leg. And eventually, we'll lengthen hopefully through the calves, through the hamstrings, through the Achilles heel, and maybe eventually your heels will be down on the mat. And hopefully you're also feeling a good stretch to the glutes. So with the next inhale, roll the eyes towards the hands. Keep a bend to the knees deeply if you need. Once more, exhale, walk the hands to the back of the mat, to the fold. Fully exhaled here. Inhale, half lift. Press into the hands wherever they are. Try to lengthen through the back and through the legs best you can. And then fold once more, fully exhaled at the bottom here. Engage the core. And press into the feet as we slowly roll up once more, or come up with a straight back. And pressing into the legs, lengthening through the upper body. Exhaling hands down heart center. One last walking meditation, pressing into the palms, engaging the core, bringing standing weight to the left side, lift the right foot. Exhale it forward. And you have that stability. The next breath cycle brings the next foot forward. And at the top of the mat, look at the fingertips, engage the core, press into the palms, inhale all the way up, release the palms, engage the core, and fold, hinging at the hips. Inhale, half lift, looking down at the floor. Exhale, fold. And step into your high plank. Step, walk the feet back. Eventually, you can just step one leg back and then the other. And inhaling shoulders over the wrists. Keeping 3 breath cycles here. Nice, long, deep inhales. The pauses, the exhales, the pauses. 3 breath cycles in total. And then we can inhale, lift the hips up, exhale, bring the hips back into down dog, let the feet lower, bring the head somewhere in between the upper arms. And another 3 breath cycles here. Walk your dog, swivel your hips, roll to the tips of the toes, to the balls of the feet if you need, and exhale slowly. Let those heels just relax downward. And keep a bend to the knees if you need. And then inhale, roll the eyes towards the hands, bend the knees if you need, and exhale the hands to the back of the mat, to the fold. Inhale, half lift. Exhale, fold. And come on back up, engaging the core, stepping into the feet, firming the legs. Hands towards the ceiling if you can, stretching all the way up. Exhale, hands down heart center. and finally let them rest at the side. And that's our walking meditation. Hopefully that warms up a lot of our major joints, the shoulders, the hips, the knees. And it's a great time for a little bit of water if you need. But then we'll be moving into our balance pose. Tree is one of these great balancing poses to kind of explore where you're at. Now, if you have a tree pose and you're kind of wobbly, having a wall near you, having a chair near you that's stabilized and not going to slide, I'll just demonstrate with being next to the chair here. But if you have to, you want to be able to reach out and hold like the back of the chair. So it just depends on how you orient that chair as well. But eventually, we're coming back to our mountain. We're giving ourselves a moment or two to just come back and reset our mountain. It's going to be a little different from our first one. See if you have your feet about hips distance apart. Tree can be done with your legs together, the inner arches of the feet together, but that's more challenging. If you have them at the feet, that's a great place to start, right under the hips. And having, again, something nearby in case you get a little wobbly. But as we're here, I'm just going to turn to the side for a moment. I have a deep pelvic tilt forward, so sometimes just coming in like this, you want to focus with our warm-ups of tucking under the tailbone and bringing the hips forward slightly so we can lift up through the chest. Eventually, we want our shoulders over our hips, over our knees, over our ankles, without our feet wobbling at the base. And we're just working on that through each and every one of these exercises. So just do the best that you can. But at this point, as we move to our tree, we want to make sure we're as tall as we can. Press into the feet. See if you have an internal rotation of the feet so that you can have the base, the ball of the foot right at the base of your big toe, kind of pressing in to the floor to help internally rotate and stabilize the legs using the outer and inner leg muscles to just lengthen. And as we do that, now I'll turn around, we're going to once more bring standing weight. Let's do it with our right side this time since we shifted to the left before. So as we're on our right side, just bringing that standing weight. It's a subtle shift, but you should be able to feel it so that now, again, all you have to do is lift through the left heel. And once you can do that, we're going to externally rotate this left hip by simply pivoting the heel inward. And then you can make sure you're not jutting this hip outward. We want to have that nice long column. And then you can start to bring the ball of the foot closer to the right foot, resting that left heel on the right ankle. We're just focused here. If this is wobbly for you, just focus on keeping that tripod up. The base of your support should be the right side of the body, all the way up towards the crown of the head. And this kickstand ball of foot on the left side is just a slight balancing ability for you tool. So once that's there, and eventually we want to open up through this hip external rotation so that you can imagine being in one plane. And I'm not there. Many of us are not, so don't worry about it. But eventually you want to open up and engage that left glute. Engage the glute of the externalized hip, and that'll help to just sink that whole column from the hips down to the heels. Once that's there, we can bring our hands to heart center, and you're engaging your core during this entire time. Pressing into the palms helps to remind your body to stay in that core engagement. So it takes about 3 to 5 breath cycles to get into a pose. And once you're there, then we're going to breathe an extra 5 to 10 breath cycles. 5 nice, long, slow breath cycles, like you can hear the ocean in the background, or 10 faster ones, up to you. Maybe sometime during that next phase, you can grow out your branches if you feel comfortable by just simply lifting up the prayer hands. You can open up your branches, bringing the pinkies inward and splay the fingers. And again, feel that solid column of support and balance. Imagine rooting down through the trunk all the way down to the feet as you're growing your branches upwards, engaging your core. And when you're done, we're going to start with the hands coming back. If they're up, exhale them down. Nice and slow. Notice how it translates through the rest of the body. And then release the hands to the side. We're going to internally rotate that externalized hip and slowly let the left heel just float back down. Now you're probably a little lopsided, feeling great activation still on that right side. So we're going to give ourselves some time to deactivate that right side that's been working so hard. We can shift some weight to the left side, keep a gentle bend. You can touch anything you need to. And we're just going to start to move that right leg that's been working so hard. You can kick out if you have that balance. You can bend the knee. You can roll the ankle. You can kick out towards the same side before you cross over the midline. Crossing the midline requires that you've got good stability on that other side and you've got a lot of that activation deactivated, so it's feeling a little better. And then you can tap that out. Hopefully it feels a little better. And then do what you need in your home base now of mountain to reset. And we'll go ahead, you're gonna come up to the front here. We'll move to the other side. And once more, resetting the mountain. Notice if there's any shift at the soles of the feet. We want them right underneath our hip bones, even distribution of the weight there. We're lengthening through the legs. Feel that internal rotation of the thighs. And as we feel more and more of that column of support, the tucking of the tailbone, we'll go ahead and start bringing weight to the left side of the body, standing weight. And once you've got that balance there, go ahead and lift the right heel. See if you can externally rotate through the right side. And I'm much tighter on this side, so it's a little harder for me to rotate. I'm more at a diagonal as opposed to the same side angle, and I'm just working on that. But keeping that open, then you can start to walk the ball of foot so you can rest that ankle, the right ankle on the the right heel on the left ankle this time. And do your best. Just focus on the balance at the base. Our foundation is set before we move up the trunk, so to speak. So once that's there and your core is engaged, and remember, there's that tripod stand and the energy of you rooting downwards, then you can bring your hands to heart center. And again, if you feel wobbly, you can use your hands, remind yourself to engage the core. And from this point, it's been about 3-5 breath cycles. Give yourself 5 to 10 more to feel out your tree, to grow your tree if you need. That may include on the inhale, perhaps, growing the branches upwards. On the exhale, separating the palms and making sure those hands are turned with the pinkies inward. Be careful not to hyperextend that standing legs, knee, and just focus on your breath. And after your very last exhale, we'll go ahead and bring the hands together, exhaling them down, releasing them to the side, internally rotating that right hip and bringing that right foot to gently land. And again, give yourself some support, counter stretch movement to that left side. You can kick forward if you have that balance, or just roll on the ankle, bringing the bend forward and out to the side. And eventually, if you can, kick it out, making sure a lot is done before you go across that midline. But hopefully that'll deactivate any still active muscles from that last pose. And it's a great time. You can roll to the balls of the feet, kind of rock on the soles of the feet to reset your home base. And we're kind of running at a time, so we're not going to do a second set, but we're going to make our way down
to the floor. You can use the blocks, you can use a chair, but eventually, if you're not used to getting down to the floor, just make sure that the chair is probably the best bet for you. But use your hands, and you can be at the side of the chair. Use your hands at the back, the base. We start to slowly bend our knees, and your heels may just really come up, and that's okay. And then eventually you can bring the shins down, not directly the knees, but the shins. And if you're hopefully not off the mat like I was, you can come on down to the mat and bring the blocks nearby if you need. We'll be going into our base bridge position. And sometimes having blocks nearby, if we go into butterfly, which I'm hoping we can do for a little bit here, you can bring the hips down to the side and make your way onto your back. Bringing down one elbow at a time if you need, or if you have your own special way of getting down. We just want to lengthen through the back. Make sure the neck and the back are in alignment, that your head isn't off to one side. And then keeping the feet about hips distance apart and near enough that you can reach down and, kind of brush your fingertips against the heels. If you have those blocks nearby, our first pose is while on our backs is just to relax a few breaths with butterflies. So essentially, heel to toe alignment for now, and keep those blocks nearby if you need support, which I know I do. Eventually, what we're going to do is start to bring the feet together. We may bring the feet side by side at the arches together, but eventually maybe we can get the soles of the feet to touch so that you're on the outer edge of your feet. And with your knees hopefully opening up. For some of us, having gravity help us to open up through the hips is a nice thing, but if you have a tendency to be tight here, it may feel good to have some blocks kind of propping up the legs, just giving ourselves that chance to override a protective reflex. With just a little bit of support there, you might find that you can indeed relax into this supine butterfly. We're taking about 3 to 5 breath cycles to get into a comfortable version where we're not straining. If your breath rate is changing, then come out of its intensity, and that would mean maybe bring the knees closer to each other. But sometimes it just takes a little while, especially if we're propped up with blocks, to feel a little more supported. And then from here, we're going to breathe 5 good deep breath cycles. See if you can hear the ocean once more. With each inhale, we're just bringing energy into the body, observing if there's any tension, any achiness around the knees, around the hips, maybe around the shoulders. With each exhale, see if you could relax that tension. See if the exhale can help carry away the achiness. There are different settings on the blocks as well that you can use as you open up a little more. But eventually in a butterfly, maybe the soles of the feet, the entire soles of the feet are touching, while the outer edge of the feet are resting, and the knees are as wide as they can be. And then your arms extended out to the side, palms up, in a soft gaze. Allowing the body some space and some time for it to be able to relax and release. You may find something in the toes, something in the arches, something in the glutes, the
quads and the hamstrings, just something in the lower back even. Just release. And as we prepare to come out, we're going to use our hands to remove any blocks and use the hands to assist the thighs. And we're going to inhale, engage the core, and start to draw the knees upwards as our soles of the feet start to move back to the mat, lifting up through the knees, bringing the entire soles of the feet back into our base bridge position, and then moving the blocks out of the way if they're at your side, keeping the arms extended at the sides of the hips, about maybe a foot away, palms down. We're going to windshield wipe slowly to one side. You can pick your side, it doesn't matter. At this point, just let your feet roll to one side of the edge. So you're going to keep your feet in that base bridge position, but just rolling onto the edge of that side that you're drawing the knees towards. Your knees might be hovering in the air. Your knees might change position. Give yourself about 5 breath cycles here. You may have the entire leg closest to the floor actually resting on the floor eventually by that last breath. And you can have the opposite shoulder lifting. It does not need to stay on the mat, but hopefully you're getting a good deep stretch in the intercostal muscles of that rib cage, through the pelvic bowl of that lifted hip, all the way down to the quad, that top leg, while the leg closest to the floor is just releasing more and more, feeling heavier and opening up that right hip with that right ankle, or that ankle and that knee floating down and releasing. And as we close out of this position, we're going to once more engage the core. You can use your arms to help assist if you need, but we're going to inhale, bring the knees back up, bring that sacrum down to the floor, engaging the core so that the knees can come back up. Use the core as much as you can. You can always assist with your hands. And then give yourself a nice little gentle winging of the knees out and in, rolling just slightly. But the feet are hips distance apart once more. Reset your base bridge position here. Make sure your neck and your spine are in alignment. Feet are about hips distance apart, near to the fingertip brush. And then bringing the palms of the hands, extended arms down to the sides of the hips. We're going to inhale and then exhale, slowly windshield wipe to the left side. Just roll to the outer edge of that opposite side. I'm sorry, it's my left side, but just go to the opposite edge, the opposite side from where you began. And then give yourself 3 more good deep breaths to kind of feel that out. And here, a total of 5 breath cycles once you've found that position that you can relax into on this opposite windshield wipe, sustained hold. You may find with each passing exhale, more and more of the left side turns up. I've got to turn off this alarm, excuse me. And with that last exhale, we're going to once more engage the core. You can use the hands to assist, the knees upwards, but we're going to roll the sacrum with the engaged core back towards the mat. The knees will automatically, hopefully, come back up. And then bringing the arms out to the side, give yourself windshield wipes with a little faster frequency. You could just roll from side to side. And do it slowly. Just notice how it feels. And then we're going to move into Shavasana. That's our final resting phase. And all that means is we get to lengthen through our legs. Do one leg at a time. Just extend one leg. Gently let that leg land. You may have a tented knee. You might have a high space between that lower back. Give yourself just a little bit of space. You may need to extend. Inhale, extend through that right leg, flexing the right foot, pressing out through that right heel, and then just let that leg relax. You can bounce that leg, tap out the knee, and then just let it be. Then extend through the opposite leg. If it wasn't your right leg that extended first, but let the other leg slowly slide downward. And if that knee is tented, if your lower back is again high up, give yourself some counter stretching movements. You may need to inhale, extend through that left leg or that opposite leg, flexing the foot, pressing out through that heel. And then release that. Let your knee tap out if that feels good. Gently let the feet kind of roll out and in. Tap out the knees. Do whatever feels good for you. Now, if you still have a really high lifted lumbar area, then you may need to have a rolled blanket slipped underneath there to kind of help support that lower back. You can also just simply inhale and slowly relax the sacrum downward. See if that helps as well. And there is just a natural slight gap between the lower back and the floor, so don't worry if you still have space there. And then extend the arms out to the side. We'll be moving into a Shavasana about a few minutes long. I'm going to sit up just to mind the time. But Shavasana is that last stage where you give your body the chance to respond to today's practice. Let the belly be soft. If the tongue is sticking to the roof of the mouth, let it be cradled in the lower jaw. You can soften the gaze or close the eyes. You can put a blanket on you if you're cold, but just let the body sort of relax. If you start to think about a lot of things, that's all right. Just observe that and then return to the breath. Sometimes the monkey mind is just there for a moment, and then you can return to Shavasana. When you hear the 3 bells, we'll awaken. Bringing the mind back to the body. Notice sounds outside the room, sounds within the room, and finally notice your breath. As the energy returns to the chest, to the belly, to the limbs, you can make any movement with your fingers and toes, you can start to rock part of your body to just re-inhabit the body vessel once more. And then making your way back up to an easy seated position upright. You can come into a fetal position and then use your forearm and arm to help raise the torso up. Sitting in hero's pose or straight on the sits bones if you're able to. Crisscross applesauce. If your knees are highly lifted in your easy seated position, having blocks to support the knees will help. And at this point, we would have a breath exercise for about 5 minutes over. So I'm just going to do a quick breath exercise to help bring a little energy back into us. Keeping the palms out to the side, we'll go ahead and inhale, arms above. Exhale, hands together and down, heart center. Fully engage the core at the bottom of the exhale. Inhale, separate the palms, bring them out to the side and bring them all the way up, gathering energy. Exhale, hands down, heart center. Engage the core at the bottom of the exhale. One last one. Inhale, hands off to the side. Gather them up above, hands to prayer. Exhaling down, heart center. Thank you so much for joining us for Gentle Yoga at noon. I hope you have a wonderful day. Namaste. Yay. Thank you so much. Usually we have about a 5-minute Shavasana, but it had to be shorter. I'm sorry, I need to watch the time a little more, but hopefully you feel a little more relaxed. Please drink some water. Focus, hopefully, with your small movements.